Thank you, James.
Oh, is it? That's right.
I'll just say we went to back to
Looking
school,
at
right?
English or
Things
something.
went well.
Okay, I made that up in my head.
You go home now. Life's good?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
very crazy for her right now.
freaking crazy.
How's Jordan doing?
He, I think okay.
I think he's doing his homework. We're not.
We're not sure. I need to get on that student portal at the college because I don't know. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this public works session of the Mahwah Board of Education to order for September 26, 2018. Would you please take roll call, Mr. Bleeker?
Mr. Wendrikowitz.
Yes.
Ms. Saccone.
Here.
Mr. De Silva. Mr. Gallo.
Here.
Mr. Kazmarski.
Here.
Ms. Conoco. Ms. Maritish.
Here.
Dr. Morthy.
Here.
And Ms. Barron.
Here. Adequate notice of agenda of this meeting has been provided to the Ridgewood News and the Record, specifying that the Mahwah Board of Education will meet on September 26, 2018, in the Administrative Offices, 60 Ridge Road, Mahwah, New Jersey. A copy was filed with the Township Clerk. Mr. Kazmarski, would you like to lead us in the salute to the flag? Thank you. Would everyone please rise? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to recess to executive session? Mr. Wendrikowitz, second by Dr. Morthy. We should be back momentarily. Yes. Thank you. Sorry. Hey, may I have a motion to resume our meeting? Dr. Morthy, second by Mr. Kazmarski. Okay, agenda questions. Please limit your questions at this time to resolutions under new business on this agenda. As a matter of fairness, you are asked to limit your questions to no more than one and your remarks to no longer than 3 minutes. If you are here representing a group, please identify yourself, the group, and your position in the group. If you are here as an individual, please give us your name and address. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes. Please specify the resolution you are referring to in your question.
Evelyn Slockbauer, 43 Thunderhead Place. Because inquiring minds want to know, our school physician, what are the responsibilities of the school physician? What purpose does he serve? And what fees, if any, is the school responsible for?
That is a really great question, Mrs. Slockbauer.
Thank you.
What I don't have in front of me is the job description, so the answer I was going to give you is going to be fairly cryptic.
Okay.
He does take care of physicals for our students. When we have a question in regard to a doctor's note that perhaps is received from someone else, we certainly run it past him. Second question, third was fees associated. The second was...
Oh, and then what, I guess, purpose he serves, so he's to go, so basically for the students.
He's
then.
for the students, but he works very closely with the nurses. So if the nurses have a question in regard to something they're seeing or a note from another doctor, he serves as our medical resource. Not that they aren't medical resources themselves, but he serves as another medical resource.
Okay, and the
He's been
fees
with us for a
associated
while.
to the
That's
school?
a great question. Kyle, do you recall what, not necessarily the fees associated with it, but what stipend we give?
Approximately 24,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Jason Kaplan, 265 Great Smoky Lane. Dr. Schoen, I called you last week in regards to this issue. Somewhat actually very disappointed in the fact that the children have school on the second day of Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, so if I could ask you please to wait till the end of the meeting, because these are things that are on our agenda right now, and then, that's okay. That's okay. At the end of the meeting, you can get up and you can ask the question. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, do you have a report for us this evening?
I do,
Dr.
and
Schoen?
it's really twofold. The first is the opening has really been fabulous, and once again, a big shout out to our administrators and our teachers for welcoming our students as well as they did. Thank you. The second is just a security update. just to let everyone know kind of what we're up to the first 3 weeks of school. Discussion did take place at length at our administrative retreat with all of our administrators this summer about procedures and processes. Training took place in all buildings where lobby guard is now present, and it's now present in the high school, in JK, and also in Lenape. I had mentioned at previous meetings that we'll continue to work with our architect to determine what reconfigurement we can do for other buildings. A meeting was also held with Honeywell, which is our alarm system provider, to talk about the new panic alarm and blue light systems that notify lockdowns in a school at Mahwah High School and the Ridge. Recommendations were made following that meeting to standardize upgrade systems throughout our district, so we'll be working toward that. District administrators are scheduling site assessments. 3 of the 6 schools have been completed, and those are done in conjunction with Captain Jaffe from the Mahwah Police Department, as well as our school security specialist, Dr. DeToro, who attends all of those. During this comprehensive assessment, Captain Jaffe utilizes the Bergen County School Security Task Force Site Assessment Visit Report to compile information. And he goes through every area of that, and that includes facilities, it includes communication, and he gives us his recommendations. Those recommendations are given to Dr. DeToro, and once the other 3 schools are completed, we'll sit down and prioritize those recommendations. Some are easier to do, cut down this bush in front of this door for easier sight, where others are saying you need to upgrade the alarm system for this purpose. So we'll begin to prioritize those along the way. Schools are also scheduling time with the Mahwah Police along with Dr. DeToro to view their emergency evacuation drills. So Captain Jaffe will go, or another officer, and Dr. DeToro, and they'll view it from another standpoint and offer recommendations, which we think is excellent. And by the end of next week, Captain Jaffe will have met with all staff members for annual security meetings. And these are real important to have that FaceTime with Captain Jaffe, who is undoubtedly and absolutely an expert in his field. So we're very appreciative, and I wanted to let you know that security does remain on the top of our list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bleeker, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yes, 2 items. First I'm going to have is a STEAM edition. Again, another update on how we're doing with that. Doing very well. If you've had the opportunity to drive past recently, you can see a lot of the exterior walls around the outside of the building are going up. The foundation is complete for the exterior portion. One of the next big things to see coming up, next big goals, is the pouring of the slab for the interior. We're probably about another month away from that, but that'll be another one of the big things to see. Also is the top coat. As I said at the last meeting, the base coat for the area behind the cafeteria, where that parking lot and loading dock area is, received the base coat. A top coat, which will be the final coat, will be scheduled before the winter sets in. That is something that is dependent upon climate and temperature, and will be done before the winter starts. One other item regarding the STEAM edition is change orders. The district last week did receive a handful of change orders that have been vetted through our construction manager, our architect, our engineers, that are being put against the contingency account that we have within the construction management contract right now. The total of the change orders, there's 5 of them. The grand total of all are $71,307. For those that may not recall, the contingency that we have built in is $275,000. So it's just a portion of that, and a lot of it has to do with some of the underground infrastructure work that went on over the summer, and some needs to happen. So these are orders that are going to go against that contingency. They're the only orders that we've received to date. The one other item that I wanted to highlight and mention is item 16E on the agenda. That's the appointment of the Assistant School Business Administrator for the business office for the district. Ms. Cheryl Ambrose was one of over 50 applicants for this position, and over the course of the interview process stood out from the rest with her professionalism, work ethic, and experience. I'm confident she will be an asset to the business office as well as the entire district. In addition to time spent working in school districts, Ms. Ambrose has also experience in the banking industry as well as a small business owner. Welcome, Ms. Ambrose.
You didn't mention that she's a graduate of Boston College, Linda's
Alma mater? How could I have forgotten? That's my role for this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Fair, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yes. Just to add on to what what Kyle stated about the STEAM facility. So what we've been also doing is we've been talking about program in relation to structure and what that looks like. So we have a lot of STEAM building and STEAM program meetings over the course of the next few months in preparation for next school year. And we've been over to the schools so far for back to school night. Things are looking really good. So we're excited for the school year.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, my report for this evening. Just want to let everyone know that Mahwah High School ranks in the top 50 of New Jersey public high schools. As in the past, this year's Top 100 High Schools chart, compiled and published every 2 years by New Jersey Monthly Magazine, ranks the state's best high schools, and Mahwah High School was ranked 41, with only 9 other Bergen County high schools ranked higher. A total of 305 New Jersey public schools were reviewed. And our ranking is basically exclusively on data for the 2016-2017 school year reported in the Department of Education's annual school performance reports. So kudos to Mahwah High School. And Mr. Pascal, principal of the Mahwah High School, is proud to announce that a member of the class of 2019 has been designated a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist. Andrew M. Hines is the recipient of the honor. He has been named as a member of the top 16,000 students from the original pool of 1.6 million juniors who took the PSAT in 2017. So congratulations to Mr. Hines. And lastly, again, Mr. Pascal, principal of Mahwah High School, announced that student Alyssa Brandel from the Mahwah High School class of 2019 was selected by the Bergen County Commission on the Status of Women Commissioners for 2018-2019. So we want to congratulate Ms. Brandel for that. And that is all that I have for this evening. Do we have any board committee? Yes, Mr.
There
Wood.
is one more thing. 2 of our elementary schools, Betsy Ross and George Washington, were also ranked in the top 100 elementary schools in New Jersey. It's a friendly conflict between themselves. George Washington parents and the Betsy Ross parents. As I said to them, it's all the same curriculum. And the criteria, even though it's used on everyone, is subjective. It's based on surveys and things like that. So all our schools are doing very well.
Thank
May
you.
I continue?
Sure. Go ahead.
In front of you have a packet which includes an upcoming meeting on October 4th, Bergen County School Board Association. Its title is School Safety and Security. We had this last year, 3 years ago here in Mahwah. And this one here will have a lot of local and countywide officials and educators who will discuss security in the schools. I think you might want to go. It's free. It's Baggiano's. It's on Thursday, October 4th. It's informative. It will be informative. You also have in there a listing of the recent educational-related enactments by our state legislature. You also have this copy of a bill. It's called 3674, which it's interesting. It talks about, it hasn't passed yet. All schools and municipalities will have to videotape their meetings, and we do that now, exclusive of executive session as part of our records of meetings. And lastly, you have a multi-page pamphlet called Pathway to Progress, the New Jersey Economic and Fiscal Policy Work Group. It's put together by the state legislature, and their quest was to address 5 issues. 1, pension and benefit reform. 2, educational reform at the administrative level. 3, county and municipal government reform and shared services. 4, state and local government tax structure. And 5, leveraging assets to stabilize the pension system. They've made recommendations. You can read them at your leisure. I don't know where they're going to go with this. I really don't. We've been talking about these things for years in New Jersey. This is the first one we got together. They have a pretty important group of people that they're on the committee. So it's a good read, but I have very little faith it's going to go anywhere. That's it.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other board committee reports for this evening? Anyone? No. Okay, thank you. Do you have, now we're getting to the board member remarks and additional comments.
At
Yes.
Mahwah Day, the greatest day of the year.
Greatest day of the year.
Two things. Two
The
things.
mums Great.
Struck me in particular. One, there were a lot of people that spoke about very highly about the STEAM building, and there's a lot of excitement, and the fact that the construction's going up pretty promptly. I think people can see progress, and they're going, "Ooh, is my kid going to be? Oh, he's next year. Oh, yeah, he'll be good." So there's a lot of excitement about the STEAM program and the STEAM building. The second thing was, it's really a Girl Scout project. There was a Girl Scout troop whose number I can't remember, but I think they're based out of JK, and they reached out. They had a project. They wanted to celebrate Mahwah's diversity. They reached out to the school board, to the school administration. They reached out to the town. And their question was, how many languages are spoken in our district? So they thought, it'd be about 25. The answer was 43.
Wow.
And they came back and they got the words to say hello in each one of those 43 languages, and they made this very beautiful T-shirt. And they wanted me to express their thanks to the staff here at the school board who assisted them in gathering that information. And and then they created name tags where they put some of the hellos in the 43 languages. So they gave me one in a language I could not pronounce. So I said, give me the German one, I can do that one. And they tasked everyone who got the tag to say hello in that language twice that day. So it was a remarkable, it was an assist from the schools, but to me it was 43 languages was amazing. I thought that was a high number
Wow.
myself. And the shirt that came out was really beautiful, and a beautiful color blue that really emphasizes the Mahwah colors.
Very nice.
Are they selling the shirts?
Yes, yeah. I don't know if they sold out, but I think when I passed by towards the end, they still had some shirts left. The shirts are cool.
So how did you say hello in your language?
Guten Tag.
Well, that's,
You got
that's
German.
German. Oh, you
Yeah,
did get
they gave
German.
me-
Oh, oh, you
Yeah,
just,
I
oh.
said-
Go out of his comfort
I
zone.
just want to add, that would be
That's
an opportunity for you to tweet if you had a Twitter.
If you weren't just a
Thank
just
you, Mr.
a-
Fair.
a viewer,
You're just a viewer.
stalk people.
He doesn't have an
I
answer.
use these public forums to get the
Tweet.
information out.
Yes,
Publicly tweets.
yes, it's old-fashioned tweeting.
Would
Thank
you
you.
like to know another language?
Sure, go
In
ahead.
Tamil, it's Vanakkam.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
There were several citizens that pointed out spelling mistakes on the T-shirt, though.
Oh. Oh.
Just
No.
saying. But that was okay.
Anyway.
I
Most
just
people
have
wouldn't know that.
one.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, Mr. Kazmarsky,
Um,
yes.
Obviously, everyone said all the great things that have been going on. I would be remiss if I didn't put on the record that our high school football team beat Ramsey in
Yes.
Ramsey last Friday.
Is that their first win?
No, it's the second.
Second.
But to beat Ramsey is always
highlight.
such great joy.
Of course, their coach just died, so they were really up to speed.
Oh, and there's one more thing. Linda Zaccone and I are attending the New Jersey School Board's release of their report on
Non-college.
non-college bound students. The report actually came out today. I printed it out today. But the official release is October 2nd, so we're going down to see that. So.
Look forward to hearing about that. Thank you very much. Okay, old business. May I have a motion to proceed on old business? Ms. Mavritish, second by Mr. Kazmarsky. Could you please take roll call? Or if there are any questions or comments on any of those old business? Everybody's good? Could you please take roll call?
Mr. Wendrikowitz.
Abstain?
Ms. Saccone.
Yes.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Mr. Kazmarsky.
Yes.
Ms. Mavritish.
Yes.
Dr. Morthy.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes. Now I'd like a motion to proceed on 15A through AA. Mr. Wendrikowitz, second by Mr. Gallo. Does anybody have any questions, comments they'd like to make on any of those items? And I would just like to thank Mr. Frank Orlick for his donation of the French horn for the Mahwah High School music program, and also thank the Betsy Ross HSO for their donation in the amount of $6,300 for a mural in the hallway. So thank you.
Can I just clarify the
Yes.
Apple Montessori and Young World? Is that for a pre-K program, the non-public technology?
Okay.
There's
we
T through Y.
we receive funds from the state of New Jersey to pass through us to go to some of the non-public schools within our community, and part of the process of accepting those funds and giving the non-public schools access to them is to have a resolution for each one. So there's technology, there's security, there's textbook, there's nursing. Again, those are all funds that pass through us. They're from the state of New Jersey. They go directly to the non-public schools. However, the monitoring of it and oversight, because we're the public school that is within that community, we have the funds and we go.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I
Okay.
throw a curve? What is the training involved with the policies we're adopting this evening? Who does the training? Is it outside regarding the restraining of students with physical disabilities?
Who does the training for students?
Do we do it
The
in-house?
outside
Do we
one
do
that
it
we have
in-house?
here?
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
On the policy dealing with the restraining of students with
Training.
disabilities,
Page 7.
it mentions a training program.
15.
Yes.
Do we do it in-house or we bring someone else in?
We do
How
it
is that
in-house.
handled?
Yep, we do it in-house.
We have staff that are trained by an agency and then become trainer staff. And so then they are able to turnkey and train our staff.
So we have child study team members.
Intensive 8-hour training that we have to provide for staff in order to be able to de-escalate behavior.
So they're certified, there's
Yes,
very little
absolutely.
chance of a lawsuit or things like that for
Correct, they are
over
certified,
exuberance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would you please take roll call?
This is roll for 15A through AA. Mr. Wendrikowitz.
Yes.
Ms. Saccone.
Yes.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Abstain on.
Check.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm already up to 16, sorry. I am abstaining on 15A, check number 92328. It wasn't in the right color, Connor.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaczmarski.
Yes.
Ms. Mavritish.
Yes.
Dr. Morthy.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes. And now I'd like to take new business 16A through V. May I please have a motion to proceed? Mr. Gallo, second by Ms. Zaccone. Do you have any questions, comments on any of these items from any board members?
I will not be abstaining on 16E.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I was questioning that, Mr. Wendrikowitz.
So was I, Mr. Windrick.
Well, I caught last week.
You've done well, Mr. Wendrikowitz.
I got the biggest hit last time, the minutes.
Yeah, you lucked out last time.
We will explain
Okay.
that to you, Cheryl.
Nothing to do with you, yeah, nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
Could you please take roll call?
Okay, 16A through V. Mr. Wendrikowitz.
Yes.
Ms. Saccone.
Yes.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaczmarski.
Yes.
Ms. Mavritish.
Yes.
Dr. Morthy.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes.
Congratulations, Cheryl.
Thank you, welcome. This is public questions or comments. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes. This is anyone that would like to come up to discuss anything that you would like to discuss. You're
Mr.
welcome to come up
Kaplan.
to the
Oh.
microphone.
Do I have to repeat the issue of my address?
No.
So, I will just for the record, 265 Great Smoky Lane. Very disappointed in the fact that a school day is scheduled on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. I feel it's disrespectful to the Jewish religion. I know there are some surrounding towns. I know, some of the surrounding towns have 2 days. I don't really think that's the issue because I don't live in those other towns. So it's not really of a concern to me. But the fact is, if this was for maybe the Catholic religion, if this was Christmas, I think that the due respect would be given.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaplan. We spoke on the phone. I called you back quickly afterwards. Let me start by saying that we are not trying to show any disrespect to any religion at all. We talked a little bit about our calendars in the past,
Yep.
and I have always told you that this year was not an anomaly for a one-day observance. It's actually what we've always done in Mahwah. But in anticipation of you coming this evening, because we talked about that as well, I reached out to the county superintendent's office just to get an understanding. So although I know it doesn't apply to you, I think the board just needs to know a general understanding of where other districts lie. There are 76 school districts in Bergen County. 24 had 2 days off for Rosh Hashanah. The majority did not. That was 2018. In 2017, of the 76 school districts, 30 had 2 days off. So the majority in our county does do 1 day off for Rosh Hashanah. We've only ever used 1 day off, and in looking toward next year and saying, is this something that we can consider, we will be unable to accommodate a second day for the 2019-20 school year. You made a statement about Christmas and about taking that off. Holy Thursday is something that is looked out by the Christian religion, and we don't take off for that. Good Friday, we do 1 day for, and we talked about that on the phone. In looking up a little bit about Rosh Hashanah and its sunset start, next year it will be Sunday as well, right? So we will do that Monday afterwards. If it ever would, and I don't think it will, ever occur where there is a Monday or Tuesday where there is a sunset start, the board could certainly consider some minor revision to a calendar which could have an early dismissal to be able to get that day in for students. But we also have to keep in mind that even with a sunset start, our sun isn't setting later at this point in the school year, so even doing a release at the middle of the afternoon. My point for telling you all of this is that we did have a thoughtful discussion as to whether or not we can incorporate that into the calendar. I don't anticipate us doing that next year, but we are not doing this to be disrespectful. We're continuing with what we have done with the 1 day.
Just because something might have been done for the past
Agreed.
20 or 25 years,
Agreed.
as you said on the phone, doesn't
Agreed.
necessarily mean it's right.
Absolutely.
To take that one step further, if I may,
Certainly.
for Christmas,
Right?
it's given a week off.
Actually-
and it says, and it even says on the calendar, holiday recess. So they're given a
It says
week.
winter break, though. Winter break.
They're given a week off for Christmas. I don't think one extra day.
Please, the intention of that, though, is a winter break, Mr. Kaplan, with Christmas having to occur 1 day during, as we often will do an April break with Good Friday ending that 4-day of an April break. But I understand what you're saying.
And
Rima?
many times the spring break is nowhere near Easter.
That is correct.
It's not
And
even
there's
close.
1 day.
Do you know when Diwali is by chance, Mr. Kaplan?
I'm sorry, repeat. that.
Diwali, it's a Hindu holiday. That's the one I celebrate because I'm
No, that's
Hindu.
respectfully no, I
I'm
do
just-
not.
I'm curious if you know, because that's on November 7th.
Okay.
And that's not a holiday, and it's certainly not a day off. And there's a large Indian community that would like to celebrate that as well. But the point I wanted to make was that if you want to take a second day, and I only know this because I've looked at it for my own for my own children, New Jersey, the state of New Jersey, gives like 35 religious holidays for various religions that you can take off. You
But-
cannot be penalized.
But that's not the point.
Hold on, Mr. Kaplan, can I finish? You cannot
Apologize.
be penalized. You cannot, teachers cannot ask you to make that work up on the next day. So if you as a parent, and listen, my kids have done that, and that's why I'm speaking to the fact that if you can make a choice and you're not penalized for that choice, then perhaps that's an option, because my children have exercised that.
I don't
right,
really think-
For Diwali.
So, in response to your first statement,
Yeah.
based upon the fact I don't know, in the realm of Hindu holidays,
Mhm.
is that near the top? Is that near the top
Yes.
of most?
Yes, it
Well,
is
then-
the
well, then
top.
I would- then-
It is the Happy New Year equivalent.
Then I would give you
However-
the same respect that I would ask of
And
the
I
Jewish.
appreciate that, but I'm giving actually you a solution, because I've had to find one
It's not the point.
myself,
It's-
which is that your kids can absolutely take a second day off. They can't be penalized. There can't be work expected, tests, anything, and this is New Jersey state law. So it might be a consideration because, again, we're working with a tight calendar. We would probably, I'm sure people would love to give me Diwali off or my kids, but it's a tight calendar. You can't always do that. So just, you might want to look into it because I
Sure.
have utilized that myself. And the teachers are very, very accommodating in this district.
I don't really think it's the point of being given new work or not new work. It's the fact of, it really, for me personally,
Mhm.
I'll just say it comes down to a respect issue. For you personally, that may or may not, I don't know, I don't want to tell you how
No,
you
no,
feel.
exactly.
I think, I would imagine that somewhere within the school calendar, I don't have it in front of me obviously, but would the children get almost a week in February?
No.
2 days, Mr. Kaplan.
No, we don't.
Okay, so and it's a week in April, is that correct?
That's correct. But it often will, sometimes, not often, but sometimes it will hinge against the Good Friday.
It's very tight. I'm Jewish, actually, so I understand where you're coming from. But we would have to do the same as Dr. Marthy, just take as an excused absence for the second day.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for coming
you.
and bringing that to our
Thank
attention.
you.
Appreciate it.
Jen Park, 6 Divine Drive. I'm here to speak of the decision that was recently made to allow to limit the K through 3 students to check out books only once every other week in a controlled classroom environment. I have a son in the Lenape Meadows School, and in addition to being a parent with a child in the district, I am an academic librarian, where I serve on the faculty at a 4-year institution about 40 minutes from here. So whereas I commend the district, we did hear that this is due to wanting to instill 21st century skills among the students. My profession, the research and the statistics, serve as the impetus for my being here and bringing up this issue. So my work with college students has provided a great deal of insight into the need for literacy support in our schools. There's been a recent school library impact study that provided an executive summary, this is nationwide, that states higher quality school libraries correlate with higher scores on reading tests done at school, national and international levels. Aspects that relate to this reading achievement include collection size, which we are very fortunate to have in our library, having a credentialed librarian, which again we are also very fortunate to have in our library, and staffing. The summary further states that when children have access to books, they read a lot, as you would think, and when they read a lot, all aspects of literacy improve. So whereas I understand that wanting to focus on those 21st century skills, such as critical thinking and problem solving, in fact, a study was conducted in 2010 by a gentleman by the name of Lawrence Hardy that states there's a link between school library programs and these skills. However, these skills should not be at the expense of our children checking out books in the classroom setting. During our HSO meeting where I did speak about this, we were told that students would have the opportunity to check books out during the librarian's prep periods, which she now has 4 prep periods for this school year. However, our school has just under 400 children. So whereas the children are able to check books out in every other week in the controlled classroom environment, that means that those off weeks they would be sent to the library to check out books. This means that there could be upwards of 100 children of all reading levels and all different grades checking out books at one time. Coming from a librarian standpoint, as well as a parent of 2 children, I can simply not imagine being able to serve that many children with various reading level skills and knowledge of the book collection all at one time. I am grateful for everything our faculty and administrators do for our children, but my stature in my profession, my knowledge of research and statistics surrounding this matter propels me to voice my concern. When a study indicates that, and I'm quoting this, the higher number of visits to the library results in higher scores on student achievement tests. This is from that school library impact study I had just spoken about. I think about the lessons that I currently provide to our collegiate population, and some of whom didn't go through the Mahwah public school system, and wonder if the move is truly a move forward or whether there will be literacy impacts. In light of these studies, I do urge the district to reconsider this decision and to not limit children to check books out in that controlled classroom environment every other week, but go back to doing so every week. I do realize that there are classroom collections that are fairly well versed, but they're simply not adequate in the ways that our children need to achieve their highest potential as it comes to information literacy. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for taking the time to put a very comprehensive statement to the board that is research-based and coming from the heart.
Absolutely.
But as are our decisions in the district, and they are thoughtful as well. So I'm going to turn them over and the answer and kind of the rationale for where we are for the board's purposes and the public's purposes to Dr. DeToro. He is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction and served as part of this decision-making both in a principal capacity when he was at Joyce Kilmer and then moving toward his current position. He's probably going to talk for a little bit, so you're welcome to sit if you want.
Thank you.
All right? All right, Dr. DeToro, it's all you. No, I'm saying you're not going to be that wordy, but I just wanted to make everybody comfortable.
This is a big issue and a big decision, so I'm gonna try
Mike,
to.
Yeah,
Gonna be-
yeah.
it's gonna
Mike,
be
would you
recorded.
mind grabbing the mic and standing up?
Gonna be
please?
recorded, you might as well.
It's important that you were seen well on YouTube and Mrs. Slockbar's video.
Turn around and face the camera if you'd like. I like these things.
That's his best side, though.
Yeah.
Just take it out and be,
You can walk around with it.
So let me just kind of just share with you the decision and the process that went into the decision that was made. As a former elementary teacher and principal, I too value reading, access to books, exposure to literature, and all the things in between that really grow our readers and inspire them to continue to look and access literature across all genres. What I can tell you is it's not a decision just of circulation. There's a lot that goes into the media center, and the media center has changed over time, as you know, being in the profession. When I was going to school, my experience in the library was that circulation, that book search, that moment that you go and you check out the book. But that structure has changed, and it went from a library to a media center. And that media center has a lot of different layers to it. So as a media specialist, there are a lot of different expectations. Library circulation is one of them. As we all know, and as an educator, we know that there's only so much time in a day. So when we went into the decision, we wanted to keep that experience of searching for a book and grabbing a new book and being excited to go and reading, but also looking at the other expectations that we have on our plate as it pertains to technology, and you cited 21st century skills. With that, there are standards that we are obligated to take on, and I say standards in a positive way. These standards are really dictate our students expanding what they're doing in school, whether it's critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and that doesn't just happen with just the homeroom teacher. It's really a shared responsibility across the board. What I can tell you, some of the things I was writing down when you were talking about your research, high quality library, collection size, access to books, I couldn't agree with you more, and here's what I can tell you. We are really, really fortunate here in Mahwah that there's a commitment from the board, from the leadership team, and from the teachers to really stay on top of where our students access those books. Gone is the day that only the library has the books in that capacity. You said yourself, in every single classroom, the students have access to hundreds of books, not just fiction books, but they span all genres. Not only do they span all genres, they span all reading levels. And in that time, they don't just have to go to the library for that circulation period. They can do that on a daily basis in school. When we did make the decision along the lines of affecting the rotation or the circulation cycle, we really tried to be thoughtful of how many books are the children allowed to access, not only just in the library, but in the classroom. So there's a collective commitment, K through 5, that all students are going to be allowed to take out up to 3 books. Not only are they allowed to take up to 3 books in that circulation cycle, but they also have access in their classroom libraries. That I was just in a classroom in GW, and the teacher was talking about the 2 books that they're allowed to pick there. They're allowed to pick the book that they're reading, and it's something called an on-deck book. That if they're finished the book that they're reading, they can jump into a new book. And again, that spans all different types of literature. So in essence, if the student chooses, they have access, they're able to hold 5 books at a time. And then they can change in their classroom, they can change out those 2 books. So I do agree with you that it's our job as a school community to give those students, give all of our students access to those books. I do agree that literature and reading comprehension is at the forefront of what we do on a daily basis, and that crosses not just the reading class, but all of our curriculum. But what I can tell you is, this decision, we really tried to look at it from all different angles. And when we started to unpack those technology standards, and we started to say who would be the point person to introduce those skills to our students, and then those students can take those skills and utilize them in all the other classes, our media specialists were equipped with that type of proficiency. And when we looked at the schedule, we felt as though that was a logical place to put that specific piece of standard integration. So I do understand that in any change, there is that feeling of, well, what are we missing out? But when we did make this decision, we decided, we looked at it from all different angles, from the access angle, from the heightened level of instruction with 21st century skills, and from the access piece, because I totally agree with you. I don't want a kid to hold on to one book for 2 weeks, because it gets old and stale. But what I can tell you is they're going to have a handful of books that they can rotate on a regular basis. I hope I answered the concerns that you had.
I'm not quite familiar with the, am I allowed to speak first?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that, and I do appreciate all the considerations that were taken. However, we're talking just more than simply being able to access books. We're talking about understanding and becoming comfortable with librarians in their capacity. And I've conducted the research on this, where first-year students coming into college, 85% of them have something called library anxiety. And part of the way that we can combat that is exposure to the librarians and working closely with librarians in the stacks, but they don't know how to navigate the stacks. And you spoke to, it's called serendipity in the stacks, but when you find that book and you're so excited, and they need to learn that books are by subject. When you're going to a particular area, you're going to be fortuitous and serendipitous and locating further information about that one subject. And so it's not simply just that, you know, they don't have enough to read or that they need more books to read, but it's also the longevity of their exposure within libraries. And that's something that we see wide-ranging on college campuses. The students don't know call numbers. They don't, and I'm not saying this is anyone's fault at all, but simply they don't have the skill set coming into college. They don't know how to navigate the steps. They're nervous to approach librarians. Part of my job is actually to make them not nervous. That's specifically one of the things that I was hired for, is to create outreach opportunities with them. So it goes beyond that, and I so appreciate you, honestly, with, you know, listening and responding. But there is a bigger picture here that I'm afraid that we are missing by just being too close and just saying, oh, it's about them having books. I mean, my children have 300 books at home and they get bored with them. I've heard from other children, you know, that they're tired of the collections in their classroom. They're simply not wide ranging enough, and I wouldn't expect them to be. You know, that's the role of the library. And that's why there's a librarian developing that collection. So that's simply further information I wanted to provide. I don't know how to per se apologize. I'm happy to provide source information afterwards and say as well.
No, you don't have to apologize ever. Feel free to state whatever you'd like to.
My name is Tricia.
If you'd like to you have to come up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
My name is Tricia Dubois. I, 3509 Whittier Court. I have 2 second graders over at Lenape, and I love the school. I love the system, but I am quite concerned about it's not the lack of books. There's tons of books everywhere. It's the lack of direct instruction and introduction. My son came home from school yesterday. He had been in the library, and the librarian sent him home with a book that I wouldn't have known about. And I've been a school psychologist for a long time. He read that book on the bus, and he got home and said, okay, are you ready to do your 20 minutes? He goes, Mom, I did it already, but this is a great book. I'm going to my room. So it's not just about how many books we can get. And I do appreciate it. I'm a school psychologist. I've been doing this a long time. I understand budgets, but this is elementary school children. You know, the social media technology has hijacked our children, and it's our job to take it back, particularly with elementary school children. I understand the middle school model, I understand the high school model, but these are young children, and they need their librarian, and they need the direct instruction. My teachers have all been fantastic. I'm thrilled by the instruction they get. And you know, I come from a good district. I work in a really good district, and I'm still very pleased with what comes home. But that's a mistake at the elementary level to cut that access to the librarian. It's not the books, it's the librarian. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Zig, and I have a 4th grade son that attends Joyce Kilmer School. I am an elementary school librarian at a high-performing district in Bergen County. I have always been proud of the district that I work in and the one in which I dwell. I have the opportunity to send my children to the district I teach in and choose not to because Mahwah has a top-notch school system. However, my pride in the Mahwah Public Schools diminished several weeks ago when my son brought home a letter from his school library stating that book checkout was now on a schedule and that he can only select books every 3 weeks. I thought to myself, what? My own students beg to check out books on the first day of school. I cannot fathom making them wait 3 weeks to borrow again. I thought maybe I was overreacting. So I shared this letter first with my library colleagues, and then I shared parts of the letter on a librarian Facebook group that I am active in and received numerous responses that confirmed that I was not overreacting and that this was indeed not best practice. And so I am here today to adjust the adjustments made to the book circulation schedules within the Mahwah Elementary Schools. The letter also encouraged students to use their classroom libraries. I take umbrage with the word library in describing a limited collection of leveled classroom books that in many cases are not even selected by those teachers. A classroom collection is a more appropriate term. A library is a curated set of vast and varied reading materials that have been carefully selected by a certified library media specialist using a variety of selection guidelines and professional journals. I want to share several reasons why limiting access to library books is not best practice and is ill-advised. First, this issue is about equity and access. Many children within our district do not have access to sufficient reading materials outside of school that meets their needs or interests. Our school libraries fulfill that need. By restricting their access, you are denying them the only source of free, independent reading material. A classroom collection is no substitute for a well-stocked school library full of the latest titles. Many students in our town do not have access to the public library for various reasons and rely solely on our school libraries. It is unfair to tell them that they need to rely on the classroom collections when you have a room full of books within the building. School libraries provide students and staff with open, non-restricted access to a varied, high-quality collection of reading materials in multiple formats that reflect academic needs and personal interests. Reducing access to library books also implies that reading in libraries are not important. During library class, students have opportunities for planned and spontaneous library use. I enjoy nothing more than recommending a book to a student and having them return a day or two later asking for another. ilovelibraries.org says, libraries best serve learners as they identify, analyze, and synthesize ideas and information by using a wide range of materials and a variety of formats and media. Availability of library resources and professional staff at point of need develops intellectual behaviors that transfer to future academic pursuits and a lifelong academic and public library use. The American Association of School Librarian Standards for the 21st Century Learner are based on common beliefs among school librarians. Among the common beliefs expressed in the AASL standards documents are, reading is a window to the world, and equitable access is a key component to education. Reading for information and for fun is encouraged by school librarians. According to Stephen Krashen, a highly respected researcher who has studied factors that impact students' reading skills, research consistently shows that when children have access to good libraries with plenty of good books and with adequate staffing, they read more and thus do better on reading tests. For children of poverty, libraries are typically the only possible source of reading material. What I was most surprised about was the wording in the letter that the book checkout was being adjusted to allow more time to focus on 21st century skills, such as critical thinking, collaboration, creativity. Since when did Mahwah decide that reading is not a 21st century skill, and books don't inspire creativity? I find that interesting since many, if not all, of your writers' workshops use books as a springboard for writing. Technology and reading do not have to be mutually exclusive things. There is enough time during library class to accomplish both. A more novel idea might be to build flex time into your school librarian's schedule so that they have the flexibility to collaborate with classroom teachers and delve deeply into meaningful projects that address the needs of 21st century learners. Personally, I am a one-woman show. I have very limited parent volunteers to help me, yet I still teach essential skills and allow students to borrow books every single day. I sincerely hope that the district reconsiders its stance towards limiting book circulation and returns to allow students to select books every week. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Gallo.
So
it sounds like there may be an element of miscommunication or misunderstanding of the change. So I just want to clarify some of the ground level facts. So did we reduce the number of books in our libraries?
No.
Did we reduce the number of books in our classrooms?
No.
Did we reduce the number of hours that students circulate through a library? No.
When you're saying circulation,
That they're in a library?
Yes.
no, that's incorrect. They're going to be going to the library every single week for the 40 minutes that they're going to be doing.
How many minutes were they going last year?
We're talking K-5.
K through 5.
That's not.
So last year, how many kids went, how many minutes per week or
So
per?
the schedule for library at all K-5 levels is once a week for 40 minutes. That schedule stays the same.
That remains the same.
Correct.
So our students are going the same amount of time, but what they do in that time is directed slightly differently than it was before.
Correct. So things like circulation are still going to continue. It's just going to take place. So they're still going to have that time to circulate with the librarian. They're still going to have time to select books. They're still going to have all of that, all those experiences that was greatly articulated in all of the conversations. But that's going to go from every single week to every other week.
Because we're investing some additional time in
We're using time
technology.
differently during
Right,
that
exactly.
library period.
So we're not reducing books.
Okay.
We're not reducing. We didn't take any budget action, if I can recall, of reducing.
No, Mr. Gallo, I appreciate your question, and actually the answer is very simple. The kids go to, well, correct, but the kids go to the library the same amount of time that they have gone in the past. The only difference is their ability to take out books has changed.
Right.
Because the time is being utilized differently.
Differently.
Right,
And
so what is,
I'm
please.
sorry, there was this difference between, I'm hearing Lenape, where my child goes, and JK, which you said was 3 weeks?
3 weeks, every 3 weeks. Unacceptable.
In okay, but K through 5 is still considered elementary. There's a difference in 4 or 5?
There is a difference in regard to our library schedules this year in regard to K to 3 and 4 5, yes.
So I have a question, because obviously my kids are much older, because I'm like, wow, how many times do they even go to the library? But, so if a kid wants to go and check out a book before this new change, they couldn't do it on an everyday basis. There was a scheduled class time.
Correct, a library
in which you
time.
went, and during that class time, you could check out a book. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
And I have to say, some fantastic librarians in this district. I mean, my kids had excellent relationships with them. Now, if a child wanted to, out of curiosity, my guess is most kids, the every other week might be fine. If a child requested to check out, and it was not their day to check out a book, I'm just curious, what would the response be given, Mike, for them, and Dr. DeToro?
At this time, if they go through those 5 books and they do need additional books, we do not have an open circulation period scheduled at this point. There was a discussion about it, that has not been formalized. What we are going to do, as we do with all new programs, is we're going to assess the program as it continues throughout the year. But at this time, we don't have a scheduled open circulation period as was discussed.
And
There's no,
I wasn't done, Pete. And what was the reasoning? Was this feedback from which source that prompted this change? Because I wasn't actually even familiar with the change. I'm hearing it for the first time tonight at the meeting. So, what prompted this change? And was the feedback from staff or from teachers, students?
If I may, Dr.
where was-
Worthy,
Yes.
I think what's best at this point is that we take the information that we have,
Mhm.
and I will work with Dr. DeToro to put together a summary as to the
Great.
rationale that led to this point, so that the board is fully aware of where we're at this point. It is that difference that has been discussed, and Mike did articulate that 120 students walking through a library does not occur. So I don't know where that misinformation
Okay,
is
great.
coming
It would be
from, but
great
we
to-
would-
for
we
the
would
board
not-
to get more
we would not-
information
We will be more
as
than
well.
happy
Before
to
you
do that.
move
Thank you.
on, also, the librarian's not scheduled every day, they're shared, right? The librarians,
Dr. DeToro, not all.
It depends on the building.
Depends
they're
on the
not
building.
shared?
JK she's there all day. And this is
But I mean, in the elementary, let me better.
Mike, answer the question, please, and stop the audience.
Yeah, and then the other librarians sometimes share between 2 schools.
Dr. DeToro?
Sure. Could you answer the question for Mr. Wendrikowitz, please?
Are they there full-time in each building?
Depending on the school size is that is the deciding factor of where they are and for how long they are. At JK, it's full-time. At Betsy Ross and at GW, I believe they share.
Sure, Lenape
And then
Meadows.
at Lenape Meadows, they have a librarian that's specific to their school. Along the lines of time and requirement, they're there to support the classes that they have. So
Correct.
her schedule supports all of the students in that school. Along the lines of contractual allotment, that's a whole different conversation. What I can tell you is every student at Lenape is supported by a librarian, media specialist at Lenape,
But not on a weekly basis.
on a weekly basis.
On a weekly basis.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
Matthew Park, 6 Divine Drive, parent of a student at Lenape. I'm also a history teacher and hold a PhD in history. Anytime my child goes to a library and is told, you can't check out that book that you just found, that is discouraging to my child. It discourages them. It teaches them the wrong lessons about libraries. It teaches them the wrong lessons about school. And thus far, I have heard no justification from anyone as to why my student should ever be denied a book. And that, for me, is the bottom line. My student, my child, should be able to go to the library any day of the week they want, any week they want, and check out a book, and they should never be denied that book. And until I hear some kind of justification for why my child should be denied a book, I'm sorry, but this makes no sense to me. That is the bottom line. I cannot see why my child should ever be denied a book from a public library. Thank you.
Thank you.
School library.
Okay.
Brooke Gaslow, 552 Adirondack Court. I also don't see technology as a replacement for books. I think they can coexist. I have schools that have a technology period as well as a library period, and if you hired more full-time librarians in some of these schools, I think you'd be able to work this into your system because there are so many part-time librarians at different schools that and they're so hard to keep. I mean, just the amount of librarians that the schools go through. The fourth librarian I mean, this is full-time, but the fourth librarian at JK in my 4 years that I've been there. I mean, I know we had Mrs. Canetti long-standing before that, but just the constant rotating doors of librarians, it just, there's something not quite right going on there, whether it's what's being asked of them or the schedule that they have to keep. And so whether they have to teach a separate period or have their technology time and then are allowed to take out books, but also keeping track, it's another thing for the parents to keep track of when they have to take home, when the kids come home with library books and they get thrown in the house and then 3 weeks later they have to make it back to the school. Who's responsible for reminding the kids to bring it back to the school 3 weeks later? It's going to be the parents because the kids are not going to remember. And I certainly don't need that as one more thing in my schedule that I have to put into my calendar. I know most other parents are not going to want to put it into their schedule as a reminder also. I just don't see this really as a working thing practically for parents or the kids that want to read the books. And to be honest, my kids don't enjoy reading. They're not readers. I think it goes back to the lower elementary where they had to, log constantly and do their reading write-ups. But when they're given the choice to go and pick out a book, they will do that and they'll sit and read. And my daughter made her own book club this summer with her friend where they actually sat down and read and discussed the book at the pool, and they enjoyed doing that. And that's the enjoyment of going to a library and picking out a book. And if they don't have that, I just think their small classroom library and going every once in a while to the school library is just going to turn kids away even more from reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gasla.
Evelyn Slapper, 43 Thunderhead Place. Okay, my son is a junior at the high school, so I am so fortunate that my children had access to the library. I also volunteered, so I spent lots of time in the Betsy Ross Library and at the JK Library helping out the librarians. My feeling is that they have so much access to technology that I think that the children at the younger grade should have the access to the library. And possibly what needs to be considered is having a full-time librarian position that was also allocated towards this technology piece. So hire an extra librarian and have the librarians at each school and have them doing the extra technology piece to comply with these standards. So I know from my children that I taught both of my children how to read before they even entered kindergarten. The books in the classroom, they were at the top reading level. So they really didn't have a lot of books to choose from in the classroom itself. And I can tell you that being in the library with the kids, you know, the girls coming in or the boys coming in and going to a particular section and like, did you read this? Did you read that? You know, like that is where the kids are going to get excited about the books and want to read, is when they get to spend that time together at the library at those young ages without a parent overseeing them, like at the public or library. They're not going to go in groups to the public library, but they have that interaction and they can, you know, get their friend interested in bugs or, you know, trains or dump trucks, whatever. So I think it's a disservice to our children if they don't have that access.
Thank you very much.
If I may, I think that all of you, many of you that stood up and others who may be in the audience listening, took a great deal of time to put together your thoughts and to do your research, and in many ways speak from the heart, from what you think in regard to this change that we put into place. I disagree that there weren't well thought out reasons that Dr. DeTuro was able to articulate as for our reason. However, what we will do is we will, and I saw Dr. DeTuro taking some notes, I did as well. We will do exactly what Dr. DeTuro said and certainly assess any new program change. We always do. And there are ups and downs and understandings as we move throughout this process. We will certainly provide the board with our rationale. Although Dr. DeTuro went through it, we'll certainly work through that and continue to assess. So I think we have a lot of information to digest tonight. I just wanted you to know that you were all heard.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anything?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
Can we use parent volunteers to rectify this situation?
We'll talk about this.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Gallo, second by Dr. Morthy. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, and thank you to everyone for attending.